Hiroshi Eto, Director, District 5.
Director Claire Wilson.
Carol Gregory, Director 4.
Danny Peterson, Director.
Okay, our presentation of the colors are by the Todd Beamer High School JROTC.
Forward.
Would everybody please stand?
Colors. Forward. March. Color. Hold. Order. Colors. Left. Face. Carried. Colors.
I pledge allegiance.
Colors.
Oh, sorry. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Carried. Colors. Order. Colors. Right. Face. Forward. Colors. Forward. March.
You may be seated. Thank you very much. Okay, we have before you the agenda, which is over on the table if you need a copy. And I just want to make one correction that is not a change, it's just an error, and that's because I did it wrong. And it's the school board committee recommendations. We're going to be creating committees of the board, but number 4 should not be on there as an action item in that we have already created the Global Learning Initiative Committee. So that is not on this agenda. Okay, is there a motion to approve the agenda?
I so move.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the agenda. Or was there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Been moved and seconded. Discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. Okay, the consent agenda.
Madam President, I move that the Board of Education approve the consent agenda of September 9th, 2014 as submitted.
It's been moved and seconded.
I second that motion.
Oh, sorry. I got the first part of the meeting right. Now I got to get this part. It's been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, no. Motion carries. Okay, we are now moving into the board development portion of the meeting, and it is my pleasure to introduce the Honorable Judge David Larson, who will administer the oath for the Office of Superintendent to Sally McLean.
Good evening. Hello, how are you? I'm going to have you raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Sally McLean,
I, Sally McLean,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution
that I will support the Constitution
of the United States of America
of the United States of America
and the state of Washington,
and the state of Washington,
and will faithfully perform
and will faithfully perform
the duties of Superintendent
the duties of Superintendent
of the Federal Way School District Number 210
of the Federal Way School District Number 210
in the County of King,
in the County of King,
State of Washington,
State of Washington,
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my abilities.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
There you go. Thank you. Thank you very much for the opportunity, and I was on time this time.
Yes, thank you very much. Sally, do you want to make comments?
I would like to make a comment. I was at a training session for new superintendents that was hosted by the Puget Sound Educational Service District and was handed a handbook for new superintendents and was flipping through that handbook and went, oath of office for the superintendent. Oh, we haven't done that. And so I want to just reassure the board and our community that the district was never at risk by the fact that I had not been sworn in, but because I take great pride in correcting oversights or being honest and transparent. When this came to my attention, I discussed this with President Gregory and with legal counsel, and we felt like it was our best course of action to be formally sworn in. So now, while I can't pronounce solemnly, I am officially the superintendent.
Yes, congratulations. Are any more on that?
Nope.
Okay, I just want to make a comment. For those of you in the audience, many of you already know this, but for those of you who are watching this program, we had an amazing beginning of the school year. We had all of the staff together in one place, and we had an opportunity to hear from Sally what her expectations of us are, what we can expect from her. And then we had another speaker on equality and equity, Dr. Jarvis, who did an amazing job. And I might just indicate that Sally got a standing ovation before she spoke, which is quite impressive. So welcome and thank you for finding our oversight.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we're now going on to the introduction of leadership appointments. Sally?
Thank you. There have been a number of positions hired over the summer, but since this is our first board meeting in September, we wanted to take the opportunity to introduce these new leaders to the board and to our community. I would like to first start with Rick Stearns, who is coming up to the podium at this moment. I am pleased to introduce Rick Stearns as the Interim Assistant Superintendent for Human Resources. Rick has a broad range of school district experience, including serving as a teacher, a math teacher, a principal, and since 2001, performing a variety of different capacities in our Human Resources Department. His knowledge of our district will serve us well during this transition year, and I'm pleased to have him as part of our leadership team.
Thank you. I just wanted to say I'm just thrilled to have this opportunity, and I've worked for the district. This is my 10th year now, 8th in human resources leadership, and I'm excited about the opportunity to continue to serve the district and to serve under the able leadership of Superintendent McLean, and look forward to working with each of you board members. And I have some big shoes to fill from Chuck Christensen leaving, but he's been a great mentor, and we are going full steam ahead. Thank you.
Thank you and congratulations.
Thank you, Rick. I would also like to announce the selection of Laura Davis Brown to head the Office of Equity and Achievement. So Laura brings more than 2 decades of experience in various roles which focus on equity and achievement, including serving as a school principal, counselor, social worker, and family advocate. For the past 6 years, Laura has served as a principal at Mirror Lake Elementary, Sahali Middle School, and some of you may remember that she was the brave soul who helped us launch the Technology Access Foundation Academy when we first opened the school. Remember, we didn't have a staff and we didn't have a location. I'm very pleased to have Laura Davis Brown serving in our Office of Equity and Achievement. And as Laura has heard me say, equity is not one person's job, it's all of our job, but she will help keep us focused on that.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
I just wanted to say thank you to the board, to Sally, to the executive board at the leadership of Sally McLean for the opportunity to continue to work in behalf of the Federal Way students and staff in our pursuit of equity, because it is something that I'm very passionate about, and it's something that I will work diligently to try and make sure that we make the growth that we are looking for all of our kids, not just some of our kids. So thank you for the opportunity.
Congratulations. Thank you.
Good evening, President Gregory, members of the board. It's with great honor that I get a chance to introduce to you officially the newest members of our administration leadership team. You may recall that we've just recently hired 6 new assistant principals, and I'd like to invite them to come to the podium, and I'll introduce them by name and school. I'll start with Jennifer Martin, assistant principal at Sahali Middle School. Jennifer. Yeah, spot for her. Angela Williamson. Angela is assistant principal at Ilhi Middle School. Angela. Next, Crystal Emerson, Sequoia Middle School. Crystal. All right, moving. Jacob Dibley. Is Jacob here this evening? There is Jacob, Totem Middle School. Paul Reed, assistant principal at Lakota Middle School. Paul. And Jamie Tuff from Fedway High School. Jamie. Is Jamie in the audience? Did she make it this evening? We'll clap for her anyway. All right. These individuals should not only be recognized for their new position status, but for the skills that they bring to our schools, our students, and our families. They're amazing people, but true leaders, and we're very fortunate to have each and every one of them on our staff. Congratulations all.
Thank you very much, and congratulations.
Thank you. Next, I'd like to bring David Stone to the podium. Mr. Stone. And David Jr., come with him. All right. All right. Recently, we hired David in a new position in the district entitled Coordinator of Student Success. David's primary role will consist of coordinating the professional development of our school counselors, the coordination of the district AVID program, and all things related to career and college readiness, to include the college-bound scholarship program. Just a little background on David. He was a product of the Fedway Public Schools, was a Kylo and Fedway High School grad, served on the first AmeriCorps team here in Fedway School District back in 1995, graduated from Central Washington University with a law and justice degree, worked as a program athletic director for the Fedway Boys and Girls Club for several years, served as a head basketball coach at Thomas Jefferson for 3 years, winning record.
Yes.
Okay.
It was
Yeah,
it was
good.
all right.
Yeah, there we go, right? Went back to school to obtain his master's in secondary education. He recently worked as a administrative assistant or dean at Totem Middle School for the past 6 years, while also he's in his final days of his master's of administration program. Amongst the various administrative duties, he served as administrator in charge of supervising the AVID program at Totem, which, as you know, is a national demonstration site. He's got little David Jr. with him, as David Jr. is 4 years old, and Jasmine, wave. Jasmine's back there. Jasmine is a Nautilus student, 11 years old. His wife, Maya, is also back there. She is coaches both boys and girls basketball at Totem Middle School, so we're very pleased to welcome David to this new position, his family. Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Absolutely.
Thank you
Thank you,
very
guys.
much.
Okay. Well, as you heard, we hired Laura from Mirror Lake to be the new equity director. And so that left us with a little bit of a quandary to figure out who would be our new leader at Mirror Lake. And so we had Ashley, who we had introduced to you earlier as the assistant principal at Enterprise, and we went tapping on her shoulder and said, hey, how would you like to step into a great leadership opportunity? And she said yes. And so we're reintroducing Ashley to you as the new principal of Mirror Lake. Want to give a shout out to Jeff Soltez, who had to lose a great person he was going to partner with this year, and he did that with such grace and professionalism. I'm very thankful and appreciative of that. But we want to go ahead and reintroduce you now to Ashley, our new Mirror Lake principal. So Ashley, welcome.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. If I knew, about a month ago that I would be here as the principal of Mirror Lake, I wouldn't believe it. So it wasn't without, it was with the support of the Federal Way Public Schools. So for example, Mr. Soltez at Enterprise, and of course, Mrs. Brown at Mirror Lake. After I had a chance to speak with them and with their mentorship support along with Cindy Black, that I said, well, I guess I answered my own question, which was why not, and why not me? So I'm really thrilled and honored to become the principal at Mirror Lake, and I certainly can't fill Mrs. Brown's shoes, but I certainly can walk in her path that she set forward, and the work is incredible that's happening there and in the Federal Way Public Schools, and the staff has just embraced me, and I just came from our first Learner First meeting, and I just can't wait to get to work and to work alongside some of these masterful teachers, community members, parents who basically are the heartbeat of that school. So thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you and congratulations.
Thank
you, Cindy. We're at least temporarily fully staffed, right? Great. Okay, now we're moving on to Resolution 2014-17, opposing closure of health clinic in Federal Way, and I'd like to call on Mark to introduce this.
Thank you very much. President Gregory, members of the board, Superintendent McLean, I have the pleasure of introducing Chris Willis tonight. A little bit of a special introduction because Chris has been serving as co-director of Student Support Services for a number of years, since 99. Wow, so 15 years. With Chuck Nickrum's retirement this past spring, it was a golden opportunity to bring Chris on as the sole director of the department. I know he's really excited about it. Again, Chris brings a long history, a veteran administrator. He's from back east. He went to the University of Oregon for a master's and a doctorate, is that correct?
For my administration.
Administrative credentials. And his wife Kathy teaches at Enterprise. He's had 3 sons graduate from Federal Way High School. The latest is at Gonzaga. And so Chris is really a Federal Way person. We're excited to have him in the role that he has. And I know he's very passionate about this topic of the public health closure. So I'm going to let Chris get on with it. Thank you, Chris.
Thanks, Ron.
Chris, before you begin, go ahead and come up here. I'd like to introduce 2 city council members who are in the audience. Susan Honda, who's in the back of the room, and Martin Moore. And this is particularly important on this issue because they are leading the way in, they have already adopted a resolution similar to this, talking about how the closure of this clinic will affect the city council, and we are following them with this resolution.
That's right.
Thank
and
you.
This is also consistent with our commitment to equity for all of our students and our families and our community. Because without King County Public Health in the area, primary care for services for women and children will go unmet. Disease prevention programs that track and respond to outbreaks of public health threats like tuberculosis, whooping cough, and measles will go not met. Programs like maternity support services, WIC, and also our public health nurses as well, who work with our students with special needs. We have a huge need here in Federal Way, given the fact that over the past 3 years, 30 of our students basically were receiving home hospital tutoring due to having children at a very young age. We also have, based upon our 2012 Healthy Youth Survey, basically we have over the state average our rate of obesity, significant mental health problems, and the use of alcohol, tobacco, and drugs is significantly higher in our schools than other places within the county and in the state. And finally, the public health nurses, as well as the educators provided, also support our school nurses. Our school nurses are instrumental in the health of our kids in the schools and supporting kids' needs in the schools, and that they utilize public health to help support them as well with all necessary resources to help encourage, not only encourage, but to link our families and our children with necessary resources. And without public health in the area, those needs will become unmet. And then finally, because of also the lack of transportation, as you well know, a lot of the bus lines and the bus routes have been cut back. And without those offices, without the public health offices in our region, our families aren't going to be able to get to those necessary services up north. Because basically the metro line has been cut even further back than they were before. So I encourage you to pass the resolution today. You know, it really, we need public health in our area. We utilize it on an ongoing basis. And I hear over and over again from our students and families that they utilize the resources available. So I just want to thank you for listening. Thank you for supporting this. And I believe that's public health is part of a healthy community. All my kids grew up here. They're part of this community. My family's part of this community, and I think it will have a huge impact on the health and welfare of all the students and families within Federal Way. Thank you.
Thank you. Claire?
Should I read it or just do a motion?
I'd just do a motion.
Okay. Madam Chair, I'd like to move to approve Resolution 2017-14, opposing the closure of the King County Public Health Clinic in Federal Way.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. Discussion? Claire?
I would just like to say that in the world of birth to 5, before kids enter school, there's so much that we can do to prevent things that keep them out of school once they get there. And if we are really going to be doing the service that we say we need to do, we cannot cut health services. If we think whole children, we can't think whole children without thinking of medical, dental, mental health, and all things that are wrapped into that. So anyway, should I read the resolution? Or is there a copy for folks if they're interested?
Is there a copy back there? No. Okay, why don't you go ahead?
Okay. A resolution of the Board of Education of the Federal Way Public School District, number 210, opposing the closure of King County Public Health Clinic in Federal Way. Whereas Federal Way School District is the 8th largest district in the state of Washington, and whereas the Federal Way School District has 38 schools, encompasses 35 square miles, and serves all of Federal Way and parts of Auburn, Kent, Des Moines, and unincorporated King County, and whereas the Federal Way School District and the community share a strong concern for the disadvantaged members of the community, particularly families and children, and whereas the Federal Way Clinic closure will eliminate necessary services for 13,700 low-income clients, primarily women, that are critical to reducing poverty, supporting maternal and infant health, and providing family nutrition, and whereas research has shown that the better nutrition a child has in those very early years leads to a better academic success, whereas clients of the Federal Way Clinic are overwhelmingly low income and people of color, with 92% of the clients having incomes 200% below the national income level, and 73% being people of color, while 59% do not have medical insurance. And whereas South King County will be without disease prevention programs that track and respond to outbreaks of public health threats like tuberculosis, whooping cough, and measles. Now therefore it be it resolved that the Federal Way Public School District number 210 Board of Directors opposes the proposal to close both the Auburn and Federal Way Public Health Clinics, which would leave the southernmost part of King County without a public health clinic, while 3 clinics are located in Renton and Kent. The Board of Directors firmly believes that any cut should reflect a commitment to equity across the county's service area and reflect the locations of populations of need. By order of the Board of Directors of the Federal Way Public School District number 210, dated this 9th day of September 2014.
Okay, further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, no. Motion carries. We will also be asking to meet with County Council Person Peter von Reichbauer to ask for his support on this resolution as he represents our area. Thank you.
Thank you, board members.
Okay, public comment. I have one item. Is there anyone else who would like to speak? If so, there are blue sheets back there that need to be filled out. Austin Wolf.
Hi.
You want to go over to the microphone, please?
Sorry. I'll be speaking on behalf of him.
Okay.
So about 4 years ago, he developed a Learn and Speak English application for the iPad, iPhone. He came to Federal Way Public Schools because he wanted a student or a group of students to help him out with creating this program instead of going to a company for it. He was unsuccessful in this and therefore ended up going to a company in the Ukraine who spoke very, very well English and had them code the application for him. Because of this, it made him think that it would like us. We urged the school district to push more towards computer coding because of how because it's a growing field and it will always be in high demand. He has pushed more and more all throughout Federal Way schools and has reached all over and even to my schools. I've tried as well. I'm a graduate of Thomas Jefferson High School, and unfortunately we have not been able to really get anywhere with this. And because of that, he would like to. He would really like to. How do I say this? Push maybe better teaching for computer coding wise. So, am I missing anything? Yeah.
Thank you very
you.
much. Any further public comment? Superintendent comments.
Good evening, or like I like to say at the beginning of the school year, Happy New Year. What a great start to 2014-15. They're in an organization our size. We've had a few schools who've been able to check off fire drills and lockdown drills, but otherwise schools started fairly smoothly. And as President Gregory mentioned, we had the opportunity for the first time in probably 15 years to start the year with a staff rally on Tuesday, September 2nd, which I think really set the tone for a great year. I would just like to reiterate the fact that I'm so proud of the staff of Federal Way School District. When I look at our 22,000 students, our roughly 17,000 families, and 3,000 staff, I know we talk a lot about wraparound services. Looking at community-based organizations to help us with those wraparound services, but we do an amazing job here in supporting our students and the needs that they have. And I just would like to emphasize, I talked a little bit about kaleidoscopes and how small shifts can provide you with a significantly different view of the world. And I'm confident with some small shifts in the work that we're doing now that we will achieve big gains for our students this year. That day, September 2nd, continued to ignite, if I can be a fire starter and not a firefighter, with deepest apologies to board member Danny Peterson. The day continued to ignite with the opportunity to meet our 7 student teachers from Korea. This is our 4th cohort of student teachers to come to Federal Way specifically. We'll be introducing them to the community at large, I believe on October 14th. But it was a great opportunity to get to meet these 7 young teachers who are working at 3 of our middle schools. I had a quick conversation with our 65 AmeriCorps members. You heard about one of our very successful startup years in AmeriCorps, and we now actually have and continue to have one of the largest, if not the largest, AmeriCorps program, not just in Washington State, but in the United States. And so it was pretty powerful to sit in this room of 65 members who work for a small amount of money and will become part of our learning community by helping support AVID and by by tutoring our students. They also do a lot of community volunteer work. So that was a great opportunity. And I got to wrap up that day by presenting to the City Council that evening a quick update on a number of things, but specifically in regards to the Federal Way High School construction, which, as many of you know, has started on that site with the major construction bid being authorized to go to the market with an award scheduled for October 28th. The rest of the first week of school was spent visiting schools, departments, and programs. I actually was at the Support Service Center, which is where our buses leave from. Bus drivers start leaving at about 6:30 in the morning. I was there at 6:15 talking to them, watching them get their keys and their buses going. The mechanics had actually had to they started all the buses the day before, because when you think about it, a lot of them sit idle over the summer, even though some of them run for summer school. And so you actually have to go through the process of jump starting about 140 buses to get them ready for the first day of school. So I learned something new that day. It was fantastic to meet some of our students. Some of you might recall that on September 2nd, I challenged the staff who don't directly work with students to learn the names of, or to get to know the stories of 7 students this year. I'm beginning. I've made connections with 4 students. And of course, it was just great to see staff in action everywhere with big smiles on their faces and welcoming our families, whether it was behind the wheel, in the lunch line, in the offices, or in the classroom, or in all the other pieces of work that occur in the district. I'd like to just take a moment to call out a couple of activities that I think are worth celebrating in a small way. In a school district, we have a fairly small window of time of opportunity to complete major construction at schools, or even minor construction in terms of painting and making some minor repairs. And we have a lot of property, 38 schools, and a really tiny window to get things designed, permitted, constructed, and done. And I would like to just give a big shout out to Cindy Wendland, the Director of Support Services, Jason Nelson, who's here, the 2 of you can stand, and Shirley White. They managed a huge workload this summer, with crews putting in many long hours to ensure classrooms would be ready for the opening day of school. And I just have to call out, including one set of contractors who literally worked all night September 2nd to make sure we would have classrooms open on September 3rd. I would also like to recognize Dana Henry, who I believe will have at a board meeting for a formal recognition later. Dana Henry is an elementary PE teacher at Lake Grove. She, in conjunction with the Washington Dairy Council, United Way, and the Seahawks, and many others, including our maintenance crew, worked together on the first day of school to do some major upgrades to the playground at Lake Grove. It was quite a fun event to see so many people working together to improve a school. Couple of upcoming items for our greater school community that you might want to put on your calendar. The Region 9 Parent-Teacher Student Association, PTSA, has their fall conference. Federal Way is part of Region 9. It will be hosted at Todd Beamer High School this Saturday. It is actually scheduled to run from 8 o'clock in the morning till 4:30 in the afternoon, with a variety of different breakout sessions and topics for our PTSA partners. And don't forget to mark your calendars for October 4th, which is the district-sponsored Parent Summit that occurs at Thomas Jefferson from 9 to 3 on October 4th. And that concludes my back-to-school comments this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, school board comments. Are you ready?
Okay. I'll start. I'm really very happy to see that Ms. Sally McLean has taken that old motto, when in charge, take charge, and moved forward in terms of hitting 2 of the things that I really was focused on, and that is in trying to improve the communications office, where there is going to be a hire being made there, and also in terms of the opportunity gap and equity seeing the hire of Laura Davis Brown is just a key hire, and I'm looking forward to working with Ms. Brown. I attended the City Vision meeting where there's so many organizations across Federal Way that are helping disadvantaged students and parents to try to cope with education and all the disadvantages that they face each day. When I attended the kickoff for the Sagali Middle School, the barbecue there, I saw some folks from the breakfast group, which is targeted at male students of color, but it was just evidence of another group that is out there to mentor youth and parents so that they can find ways to improve their chances for success through education and through life. And so I'm hoping that with the hiring of Ms. Davis Brown, we're going to be able to make those connections and get our students and those parents connected up with all these different services. And it's just more compelling now because of the potential loss of the health clinic in Federal Way in Auburn. So I'm glad that these hires have taken place, and it's created the opportunity that we can make some really great improvements in the months ahead. Thank you.
I want to welcome everyone to the first few days of the first week of school. I too did my school visits. I haven't made to all of the schools yet in my area. It's a difficult thing to do all within the first week, but I visited 5 so far, and I will tell you that 2 of my targets were Valhalla and Sunnycrest, which is where we placed the portables, if you recall. And I just wanted to share that both of them have portables in place. They've both chosen to do something a little different. Valhalla has chosen to make a 5th grade community with their set of portables and have created really a leadership opportunity for that team of 5th graders to create a community and then help the school and show the school what it looks like to be in that leadership role. And then at Sunnycrest, it was an interesting thing that they have created an opportunity for 2nd and 3rd grade team teaching to happen, which wasn't their initial intent, but the teachers themselves were so interested in providing that opportunity for kids that that's what they've done. And when I was out the first day, they had yet to really set up the classroom. However, all of the children were on one portable in a huge circle with a great big fire that was not real, that had, you know, the paper that goes up, and they were having their community meeting. And it was the first time in both schools the principals talked about Valhalla has a staff lounge again and a place where teachers can go. And for Sunnycrest, it's the first time they haven't had to use their entryway for a classroom. And so didn't really know what it felt like to have some space, and felt like they weren't quite as full as they used to be, but it's because people have a place to go. So I want to report back on that and just tell folks how thankful they are for that additional space. And it's what happens when we have ebb and flow with kids that come and go. And I will continue my visits in the coming weeks. I also was at the Back to School rally, and Edwin Javius was absolutely an amazing inspiration when you followed up. He follows up Sally. I don't know who would have been better following up who. But the message about doing the best you can every day for all children, knowing that equity is the process and equality the goal. And I think when you talk about teach like your hair's on fire, which is what he talked about being a firelighter, not a firefighter, which is this idea in our real world we put fires out, but in teaching we want to light and ignite the fires of children. To be a dream maker, not a dream breaker, and to be a merchant of hope for all children. He really set the tone, as did Sally, for the year. Mr. Wolf, I want to thank you for your tenacity and your continued visits, and would like to just extend an opportunity for anybody who might be out in the audience who is interested in coding and maybe thinking about it as an after-school opportunity, an extended learning opportunity. They could get in contact with one of us at the board, and or you could get a hold of me, and I would love to be able to pass you on to Mr. Wolf. He has lots of experience, lots of information, and I think he's got some opportunities for students that he's trying to connect. And having a difficult time doing that. So I just want to put that out there and thank you for being an active member of our community. And I guess the last thing I want to say is legislatively things are moving along as we think about basic education and we think about No Child Left Behind and the waiver. And so I would just like to put out there that it is now the time to start putting legislative updates on our board agendas. And also would just like to say I need to excuse myself at the work study on the 16th because I will be in DC with a delegation meeting with our Washington folks talking about those kinds of educational issues that are impacting our students here in Federal Way, as well as the rest of the region. And then we'll be going to the WASDA legislative convening along with Mr. Davidson, and we'll report back at our next board meeting kind of what the landscape looks like and what's happening legislatively, both nationally and in the state. So, and I just want to welcome everybody back to school. Thank you.
I thank everyone for coming out tonight, and it's good news to see how our school year's kicked off. And obviously, lots of changes are happening in our district, but you see the passion that we have, the amazing talent of people that we have serving our community, serving our schools, serving our students, the teachers that are just pouring in so much time, and they're so passionate about it. And it's what makes Federal Way School so great, and it just makes me proud when you go to the different schools and part of the meetings just to see what's going on, all the extra hours that are being poured in for our kids. And so I'm extremely grateful as a board member for it. I was able to stop by, I saw Director Eto as well for the Sahali Community Barbecue. Fantastic event. Last year I think they gave over 1,000 hot dogs out. I don't know what we hit this year, but it was just a gorgeous night, and really taking on that whole concept that Executive Director Blauser brought in about the whole idea of really trying to get those feeder schools and the feeder patterns, and how do we reach our communities, and who is, how do our kids ebb and flow through our system. And so there's a school that's taken that and is doing it, and sent out an invitation to the schools that feed into that middle school, and really just brought the community together that night. It was fantastic to see community organizations, churches, tutoring opportunities, whatever it was, just resources for parents and kids. And just a fun night, free food. Of course, Umpqua brought over their ice cream truck, and my kids liked that when they were there, and just a gorgeous night. And I just appreciate that. That's just the thankless things that our staff do that not everybody sees, but it goes so long to really building the communities in our schools, and I'm so appreciative of that. Also was able to show up for over at Lake Grove on that day for the construction, and we're grateful for the Seahawks and United Way and NFL. And I went over to that event thinking, okay, it's gonna be all right. I'll definitely just show up and just kind of go, thanks for coming. And man, just off the charts. And our maintenance department did a fantastic job. I see Jason Nelson back there tonight, and he was moving all over the place, and the Bobcat and all that stuff, making things happen in there. Our staff, volunteers. And you have guys like Steve Largent, Max Strong, and Warren Moon showing up, and the Seagals, and the drum line, and everything. And there's police officers showing up going, this is awesome, we want to check out what's going on here. And the community wanted to come out, and it's fantastic to see something like that being celebrated in Federal Way. That we have the attention of seeing the good stuff there. And our hats go off to the amazing PE program going on at that school. They did the fun run this last year at the close of school, brought together the elementary schools there. But you see that happening. It was also the Seahawks and the partnership with the Federal Way School District that brought We Day to Washington and Seattle. And so there's those cool partnerships that we get to have, and harnessing the 12th man and doing all that. It's great. And one last thing I just want to say tonight when I'm done with my public comments is, I don't know if any of you are aware, but this Thursday is September 11th. And if you have had a chance or have not had a chance but not aware, I encourage you to stop by this September 11th at 12 noon. And South King Fire and Rescue is going to be memorializing and celebrating what they put together as a memorial for September 11th. And there they have a beam from one of the Twin Towers that came down. They have a limestone from Pennsylvania where one of the other airplanes crashed. They have a stone from the Pentagon there. An amazing, amazing outdoor exhibit that you can come by anytime and see. And they have done such an amazing job, lots of volunteer hours, and And then put into this just to memorialize those that lost their lives on those airplanes. And of course, we have memorialized one of those people that was on those airplanes, Todd Beamer, in our school. And we continue to remember those heroes, those first responders that responded on that day. And really, it was, you know, obviously monumental in changing the trajectory of our nation and brought us together. And it's a really, really, really cool piece to have in our community, to have a constant reminder, and to be able to bring our kids and our students and family and be able to remember those that lost their lives on that day. So I encourage you to check that out this September 11th if you want to, or anytime. You can stop by Station 64 there on 320th. So thank you.
Well, I also have to say again how impressed I was with the beginning of school. We needed a good start, and we got a good start. And I think everybody felt really positive about the opportunity we have this year. I had the opportunity prior to that on Sunday to go up to Wildwood to the community picnic, and it was amazing. The number of people, and the tamales were outstanding. But to see an incredibly diverse community come together in one place to celebrate their children and their teachers. And I was so impressed. Having been an elementary teacher, I know how miserable it is to get the classroom ready. Anyway, it was for me. I'm not artistic. And everything looked great. The kids were excited. The parents were excited. It just was a very meaningful day, I think, for everyone. And then Wednesday, I went back up to see the opening of school. And Wildwood is in my backyard, and I want to particularly spend some time there this year. And so I started out the year with them, and we had the opportunity to not only have an excellent beginning of school, but we got to do a fire drill within 5 minutes of school starting because a baby in his mother's arms pulled the fire drill, the fire alarm. So off we were out in the goose poop, which if you go to Wildwood at this time of year, Canadian geese are all over the place, and they fly over as they're going to Steel Lake. And so we all stood out there. It was just amazing to see. That was probably so much fun just to see everybody in one place. But it was a very good beginning. I had the opportunity, too, to follow some noise that was going on in the administration building. And I could hear this noise, and I thought, what is going on? And as I got closer, it got louder and louder. And it was a group of the kids from one of the WE trips, and I'm not going to say too much about it because they're going to come and present. But it was amazing to watch and see these kids and the excitement that they had from their 2 weeks in another country and what they learned. And I mean, they are such fast friends now, too, as individuals, but they've got a real story to tell us and the impact it's had on their lives. And they will be here at some meeting. Finally, I want to introduce another city council person. Lydia Asefa Dawson is in the back. Do you want to just wave? We're pleased to have you here joining us. And then we have a candidate here for the state senate from the 30th district. Sherry Song is also here in the audience. So welcome to both of you. Okay. With that, we're going on to the school board committee recommendations. At the last school board study session, I gave to the board a list of committees that we need to create as a board in order to get our work done for this year. And there are two kinds of committees that we have in the district. We have board committees that the board authorizes, and we have superintendent committees, which the superintendent authorizes, and the board is apprised of those and follows that work. And right now we have the grading committee, which is the superintendent, and we have the Global Learning Initiative, which is a board committee. Because this year we need to do a superintendent selection, that is one of the committees that's being recommended. A search committee. Then we also in this district, as far as I can figure out, really have never had a superintendent evaluation process. We evaluate the superintendent on the strategic ends that we've set and the essential learnings, but we have never formalized that into some kind of a document. So we're going to do that this year as well. And then, as many of you know, we operate under a policy governance model, and we have not really gone through all of our policies around that in the past 5 years, and so we are doing that through a committee as well. So those are the 3 committees. These committees are to make recommendations to the board. They do not operate independently. They do not speak on behalf of their committee except to the board. And so that is the purpose of the 3 committees that are on the table. So is there a motion to approve the 3 board committees? Two mics are on if we...
Are we going to discuss the committees, or are we just going to
Well,
approve
yes,
them?
in
Okay.
discussion.
Perfect,
Yeah.
fantastic.
Yeah, but we need a motion.
So I approve. What am I doing? I was waiting for Dandy. And
Madam
I got
President, I
thrown off.
move
Thank you. Thank
To
you.
approve the Superintendent Search Committee.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded to approve the Superintendent Search Committee.
I'll second the
I'm
motion.
sorry, I'm
That's
sorry.
okay.
Discussion. This is the search committee that will recommend to the board a process for the selection process for a permanent superintendent for Federal Way.
Just a couple things. I don't know, Madam President, if you want to read the purpose of the committee that has been written down,
Sure.
just as we're discussing this committee and its extent and what purpose it serves in advising the board.
The purpose of this committee, just to be very specific on what I wrote, it will have the responsibility of developing and recommending to the Board of Directors a superintendent search process. Again, the decisions are the board's. And timeline for the selection of a permanent superintendent. The recommendation will include appropriate involvement of the community, parents, students, and school employees. If the process includes an advisory committee, all appointments will be recommended for approval by the board. That is the charge to the committee. Discussion.
Actually, I think that's a fantastic thing. Obviously, we're in a place right now that we were at several years ago, and I think there's things that have already been put in motion that we can basically kind of follow and piggyback. There's probably some things maybe that we want to consider different for this next time, and maybe there's things that we haven't really solidified or considered, and to get those recommendations I think would be helpful. I think just, yeah, as I see, this is not the committee that's going to come back and tell us, hey, we've got the superintendent for you here. Here's the superintendent. This is just going to be coming back to us saying, here's a process that we would recommend and a timeline for that. Here's some key, some key people that you might want to, or types of people you would want to consider being pieces for that. One other thing is, as I look through this, it says governance process 7. I believe it's governance process 6. That
Sorry.
is that. So I just don't know, just to have that there, would be helpful. But do we want to have it until the completion of the hiring process, or do you just want to have it until we begin the hiring process?
The
launch of the hiring process.
I put completion in that they would simply be monitoring the work as we go forward. If you feel that it should only be until the beginning of the process, we could do that as well.
I don't have a problem with it, and there might be things that we could task the committee as we go through the process that might be helpful, or we might just want to dissolve it, but obviously we'd have the option to do either.
Yeah. Anything further?
No, it is, I'm just looking, it is GP6 instead of GP7, Board Advisory Committee principles and the governance process. And I, again, appreciate the skill set of both Director McAnally and Director Eto in project management, because that's kind of what this is about, is really project coordination, project management, developing the timeline, and then bringing those recommendations back along with suggestions and recommendations for the process, and not the product, but the process that we're going to undertake. So,
Okay, I will just say I think it's GP 6 and 7.
okay.
As we look at the other one, explains to the committee how they are to operate.
Right. The other one's the advisory committee structure, though, versus the board advisory committee. So is this a board advisory, or is this an,
They're the same.
oh, one's about the structure, sorry.
Yeah.
You're, okay.
Right. Okay.
Excuse me.
Anything further?
I didn't know as well, have you selected who would be a part of this committee?
Yes, I have selected Jeffrey McAnalloy and Hiroshi Eto.
Okay.
Seeing no further, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. We're now going to the Board Superintendent Evaluation Committee, and this committee will have as its purpose to create a formal superintendent evaluation system. The work will include developing the process, timeline, and proposed documents to be used. The process will include appropriate opportunities for input from the community, parents, students, and school employees. The formal process will be recommended to the board for their approval. Is there a motion?
I move to approve the Board Superintendent Evaluation Committee.
I second that motion.
It's moved and seconded. Discussion? This committee will be Claire Wilson, Sally McLean, and myself.
My clarification for this committee is we do have a process in place for the evaluation of the superintendent. It's not that it doesn't exist. Is the intention of this to finding another means of evaluating the superintendent as
No.
well, or enhancing and solidifying the current structure that we have?
The policy governance speaks to what the superintendent will be evaluated on. It does not have a process for that to happen and how we proceed with that, unless there's something in there I have missed. This is more about wrapping around that a formalized process. So at the end, we have a document that says that these things were completed. And I know we do a report on each end, but it doesn't really look at the individual and the role of the individual in all this work, and that's part of what this will do. It's something I think a lot of people who have done policy governance have realized they really don't have. And so that's what we'll be looking at. Others, Claire already has one, where others are doing the same thing. It's not changing what the evaluation's about, it's putting a process around it.
I think it's also kind of filling in some holes so that even the superintendent who is being evaluated has something they can actually hold up and see. And I know when you've got ends, it's very difficult to figure out what are the measures of progress, and are we holding Sally to percentages of student growth or student change? Are we looking at trends? Or are we looking at change? Or what are we looking at? And with the end, it's really hard to kind of know that. And so part of this is for us, I think, in our policy governance work to help clarify for ourselves what those measures might look like, and then how it fits into the policy governance structure. Because we do evaluate the superintendent on the ends, but in not such a way where it is maybe a useful document or one that we could refer back to. And when we go back to look, there isn't really a document that exists to refer to. So
is it then the recommendations of how we want to interpret or expand our ends and also our ELs, or executive limitations, so the do's and the don'ts of that job description?
No.
Which would be our current, which is what GP3 and governance process 3 and 4 about, basically evaluating superintendent and the forms for doing that. So it's beyond that.
It's beyond
okay.
that. Yeah. Those are pretty global, and it's to really come up with a good quality evaluation process around our ends and ELs.
Great.
Seeing no further discussion, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. The last committee is the Policy Governance Review Committee.
Madam Chair, I move to approve the Policy Governance Review Committee.
Okay, and
I second.
And for your information, it's been moved and seconded to approve the Policy Governance Review Committee. And the Policy Governance Review Committee will have the responsibility of reviewing all policy governance policies yearly and recommended changes to the Board of Directors for consideration. Recommended changes to the policies will be made to the Board of Directors for consideration. The committee also has the responsibility of creating the reporting schedule for the board to approve. And that committee is Danny Peterson and myself. Discussion.
I would love it if maybe the first thing that you looked at would be our, what is in existence currently for superintendent evaluation, so that whatever we do have in our policy governance we can build on or build off of, rather than have two separate pieces of work going that maybe would inform one another. So I don't know if that's possible or not, but.
Well, that could be done, or the evaluation committee could also do that.
Correct.
And build off of that.
Thanks.
To answer that question, it's board's superintendent relationship 4 and 5, and governance process 3 and 4. So those
Thank
are.
you so much.
Yes, so there you go. And that's actually, so what I see for this, and actually the mechanism for policy governance is, it's not just in a committee, it's the whole board embracing it. And so this is one of those things, I think this is going to be help the board in being disciplined and continue to review it. This doesn't get any of our board members off the hook. As I read this just basically helps bring some things for consideration, really doing that work that you know, a lot of us in life, we don't appreciate policies. They're kind of boring and long, and you know, point dot 34AC section 4D, but it's the stuff that, it's the structure that gives us the backbone to be able to do what we do and to be able to say yes to things and no to things. And you know, when things are going well, we don't necessarily, you know, policies, you know, aren't necessarily needing for guidance, but it's usually one of those times when you need that guidance when things aren't going as well. So I think this governance committee will be great. Yeah, definitely this, I see it in the veins of the same thing as governance process 3 and 4, of just really getting that timeline set and how we review it. So I think it'd be time well spent.
I think right now, part of what we need to do is not only look at the policies, but then give the opportunity for the process to be cleaned up too. We, as many of you who may have been at our meetings last year know, we get volumes of information. It's an inordinate amount of work to prepare for a report on any of these ends. And we really, Sally and I have talked about this, and Danny and I have talked about this. How do we cut that to the point that we're getting the information we need and not expecting people to tell us everything? And part of that will come as Sally does her measurable, are you calling them objectives? Sure. Measurable objectives, which Sally will be presenting to us for the different ends, so we'll look at that. So any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, no. Motion carries. And as I indicated, the Global Learning Initiative Committee has been approved and will be moving forward as well, but we didn't need to approve it at this point.
Madam President, are
Yes.
we able to get a report from the Global Learning Initiative Committee here in the fall at some point?
The group and the planning group has met once, and then we had a little waylay. We had a bit of some shifts and changes in the district, so we are due to meet again as a leadership group to kind of get back on track and decide how we want to officially really launch the work. So we had some initial conversation with communications, with the Global Learning Group and the folks within the district that are working on that, to kind of think about how we begin to plot that. We looked at the framework for the committee and talked a little bit about structure and potential membership, but then we put things on the back burner. So we will pull it up in front, and once I think we have our first meeting and our plan on how we really are going to officially launch, that's what we'll bring to the board to report out on.
Fantastic.
Great. Okay, in your packets, and these are reports for the board to look at, are the 2013-14 ends reports as were approved or not approved, or whatever action was taken by the board. Those have been written up. Our requirement is, or my requirement as president, is to write up what the board decided and provide those to the superintendent. And so I have written those. Please review them. If you have any questions or want to change some of the language, just let me know, and I'll be happy to do that. With that, we are going to recess into executive session, and we are going to be discussing negotiations, and we will return probably within the next 20 minutes or so to likely take some action. So I'm not going to adjourn. I'm simply going to recess once I find the gavel. We are in recess.
It's such a fun word.
Yeah. We are now back in session. Having recessed for a discussion on negotiations, we have 2 motions to put before the board. Mr. Etto.
I move to approve the letter of agreement between Head Start, represented by Public School Employees Union, and Federal Way Public Schools, effective September 1st, 2014 through August 31st, 2016.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Discussion.
I need to recuse myself from the vote.
Okay. Discussion.
I think this is fantastic. Appreciate everybody that was part of the work to have this, move this forward. Obviously, Chuck Christensen, you have Mr. Stearns, and all those are part of that committee. It obviously takes a group of work and that time spent, so we appreciate that. And I'm glad that we're to a place where we can move on this today.
May I? I'd like to publicly thank Marion Leach, who's with us in the back of the room, who was the lead negotiator on this particular contract and the one that you will be taking action on next. Thank you, Marion.
Thank you. Okay, seeing no further discussion, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, no. Motion carries.
Madam President, I move to approve the letter of agreement between ECAP, represented by Public School Union, Employees Union, and Federal Way Public Schools, effective September 1st, 2014 through August 31st, 2016.
Been moved and seconded?
Second?
Been moved and seconded. Discussion? Claire?
I need to recuse myself from this vote as well.
You want to explain?
I'm recusing myself because I work for Puget Sound Educational Service District and am the signator on the grant for the state for early learning. So in order to prevent a conflict of interest, I excuse myself from the votes that have to do with early learning where there's any monetary involvement or contractual agreements in place. So just
Great.
a little FYI. Thank you.
Thank you. Discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. Anything further to come before the board? If not, we are adjourned.